Welcome to Verse by Verse, episode 12. We're diving into Romans chapter 1, verse 16. If the greatest letter Paul ever wrote has a theme, this is it. From the city of Corinth, just before sailing to Jerusalem with a boatload of money that he and his helpers had been collecting for months, Paul sits down and writes a letter to a congregation he has never visited in the most important city in the world. This is universally acknowledged as the greatest letter the Apostle Paul ever wrote, his magnum opus. Let's spend a few minutes dissecting the theme of the letter to the Romans. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God. Why would you ever say, I'm not ashamed that I won an Olympic gold medal, or I'm not ashamed that I won the spelling bee, or I'm not ashamed that I'm the world's #1 ranked chess player? Why would anybody say anything like that? Achievement isn't something to be ashamed of. Why would you feel the need to defend something that is your honor and glory, something you are appropriately proud of? The word ashamed means disgraced. And from a physical standpoint, it means disfigured. If you've ever spent an hour molding something with Play-Doh and then on an impulse you destroyed it, you disfigured it. That's the physical image of being ashamed of something. The Apostle Paul is saying, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's no disfigurement here when we talk about God on a cross. Really? 2,000 years removed, the cross has become a decoration. We don't kill people that way anymore. But a gas chamber or a guillotine is not a decoration. That's too close to home. Paul is writing this letter just 26 years after the crucifixion, a weapon that was still in use at the time. It needed to be defended because it is shameful, disgraceful, excruciating way to die. You don't want yourself or anybody you know and love, or even somebody you hate, to be treated that way. There is no honor associated with being hoisted up with spikes through your wrists and ankles, to die alone, naked, and in unimaginable pain. It's the exact opposite of honor. Why would anyone want to be associated with that? How can anyone believe this is God, and this is a powerful, glorious, victorious condition? This needed to be defended. Paul says, this is actually good tidings. This is a very happy message. That Messiah you've been waiting for thousands of years, he's arrived. This is what he looks like. He's declared to you good news, peace, and victory all around. Can't you tell? This is the power of God. This is the dynamite that belongs to God. We get the word dynamite from the Greek word for power, having the strength or the inherent ability residing within to do something. Now, God certainly has that residing in him. It's the image of what his power looks like that is incredible. We're not capable of believing it. This is what having resources, an infinite number of them, looks like. Dynamite in Greek traces its roots to favorable circumstances, or a state of mind that gives you the ability to do something. That makes perfect sense until you point at the cross and say, this is the favorable condition under which God accomplishes all things. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That beautiful verse is about Christology. I can be crucified today just like God, accomplishing all things in my cruciform condition. This needs defending. It needs explaining, which is what the rest of this letter does. This thing that we are not ashamed of, even though of course we are ashamed of it, is what leads us into or towards or places us among the salvation that belongs to God. Salvation is deliverance, preservation, and safety. And ironically, it's a deliverance from the molestation of your enemies, and yet that's exactly what it looks like. Jesus is being molested by his enemies, and he's calling it salvation. Salvation is deliverance from the very thing he is experiencing. The root meaning of the word salvation is safe, and Jesus looks anything but safe on the cross. This salvation is for everyone who believes. Everyone is in a singular masculine form. It's as if all of humanity is being treated as one single man who believes. I wonder who that man is. It's not me. It's not you. Believing in the deepest sense of that word is beyond our ability. It's above our pay grade. But it's not above the pay grade of the man who is believing himself. He's the one man who believes for all of us. This man is, first and foremost, a Jew. A Jew is someone who traces his roots to Abraham. That's one definition. The word Jew comes from the word Judah, which means the man who shall be praised. But even the word Judah comes from a verb that means to throw or to shoot or to cast, as in to throw a rock or to shoot an arrow or to cast somebody down. And finally, one more step, that verb traces its roots to the tiny word hand. The hand of God, how God grasps, how God points, teaches, and instructs his right hand of power. When you mention the word Jew, it's parochial to think of Jews or Jewish people or a nation on earth. It's Christological to say, first and foremost, Jesus is God's right-hand man, who is thrown down as he shoots the arrow at our enemies and himself is cast down. First and foremost, Jesus is a Jew in that sense. To the Jew first, and also to the Gentile, the Hellas, the Greek, the unstable one, the miry one, the muddy, slimy one, the one on the outskirts, on the circumference, the one not located in the big city where the important and beautiful people are found, but the simple, common, forgotten people on the outskirts. So who is Jesus, and who is his salvation for? Is it for the people who trace their roots to Abraham and are praised by God? And in fact, God's right-hand man? Or is it for the person who is a million miles away from that? He's not part of the chosen. He's not part of those who belong. He doesn't go to church. He isn't religious. The insiders or the outsiders? In Romans 1:16, when Paul talks about the Jew first and then the Gentile, don't think of nations, don't think of history, but think Christologically. Jesus is the ultimate inside man, the Jew, with an emphasis on the definite article. And he is the ultimate outside man, kicked out of the city of Jerusalem by the very people who represent God and his temple and all things good, right, and salutary. Jesus is both at the same time. We're not ashamed of the cross. Yes, it's a terrible, terrible way to die. Yet, it's the only way to live. In Jesus' name.